It's late at night. Rain is coming down so hard it feels like it might never stop. You're standing on the side of the road, soaked to the bone. Your feet hurt, your hands are freezing, and your little girl is asleep in her stroller, wrapped in a thin blanket. You wave for a taxi, but they all speed past. No one wants to stop for a tired mom in the rain. You're about to give up when you hear a motorcycle. It slows down. The rider takes off his helmet, and it's Keanu Reeves. Yeah, the Keanu Reeves. He looks at you with kind eyes and asks, "Need a ride?" But that was only the start. 2 days later, a black SUV pulls up right outside your home. A man in a suit steps out with something in his hand. And what he's about to tell you, it's going to change everything. Stay with me. This is a story about kindness, second chances, and how a moment with a stranger can turn a life around. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you love hearing real stories like this, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Sophia Carter was 29, but most days, she felt twice that. Life had worn her down. She was raising her 4-year-old daughter, Lily, all by herself. No help, no breaks, just her. They lived in a tiny, rundown apartment in a part of the city where people kept their heads down and doors locked. The walls were so thin, she could hear the couple next door fighting almost every night. Sirens were normal, like background music. Sometimes there'd be a loud bang, gunshot, maybe fireworks. She never knew. Either way, she'd pull Lily close, hoping she'd never have to find out. Sophia worked 2 jobs just to stay afloat. Mornings at the laundromat folding other people's clothes. Evenings at a diner, serving burgers and coffee to people who barely looked her in the eye. The hours were long. Her feet hurt all the time. She'd come home so tired she could barely think. But rent was due every month, and daycare wasn't free. She didn't have a choice. Lily's dad, Aaron, left before she was even born. When Sophia told him she was pregnant, he promised they'd figure it out together, that he loved her, that they'd be a family. But promises are easy to break. First, he needed space. Then he wasn't ready. And then, one day, he was just gone. Sophia didn't cry over him anymore. She was past that. What hurt more was the guilt she carried every day. She felt like she was failing Lily. The little girl with the bright eyes and messy curls deserved more time, more laughter. More than this life of maybe next time, and mommy has to work. But there was one thing Sophia never told anyone. Before all this, before Lily, before Aaron, before the bills that never stopped, she had a dream. She wanted to be an artist. She could see stories in her mind and put them on paper with every brushstroke. But dreams didn't pay rent. So, she packed them away like old clothes she didn't fit into anymore. Now, most days, all she could think about was making it to the next one. That night, the rain felt like it would never end. It wasn't just a light drizzle. It was the kind that soaked you in seconds, like the sky was angry. Sophia stepped out of the diner after her shift, her back aching, her feet sore, her mind racing about bills. Lily was curled up in her stroller, covered with a thin pink blanket, fast asleep. Her little face looked peaceful, but Sophia knew the cold would wake her soon. She needed to get home, fast. She stood by the curb, waving for a taxi. None stopped. One sped past so fast it splashed dirty water all over her shoes. Her coat was thin, her socks already soaked through. She blinked hard, fighting back tears. This was just another bad night, like so many others, but it still hurt. She was so tired of everything being hard. That's when she heard it. A low, rumbling sound. A motorcycle. She tensed. This part of the city wasn't safe at night, and men on bikes usually meant trouble. The rider pulled up right next to her. All black. Helmet, jacket, gloves. He didn't say anything at first. Just sat there. Her heart raced. She gripped the stroller tighter, ready to walk away fast. Then he lifted his helmet. Her breath caught in her throat. It couldn't be, but it was. Keanu Reeves. Right there, looking at her. Rain dripping from his face. His voice was calm, gentle, like he actually cared. Need a ride? Sophia froze. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out at first. Finally, she managed. I have my daughter. She motioned to Lily. her fingers trembling. Keanu looked down at the sleeping child, then back at Sophia. His face softened. He didn't act like a movie star. He acted like a decent person, a human. He took off his black jacket and handed it to her. "Take this," he said. She hesitated. He nodded. "It's okay. Take it." She wrapped the warm jacket around herself, and for the first time that night, she didn't feel so cold. He stepped to the street, raised his hand, and just like that, a taxi stopped. Like magic, he paid the driver before she could even say anything. As the cab drove away, Sophia looked back through the window. He was still there, standing in the rain, helmet in his hand. She held his jacket tighter, not just for warmth, but because for the first time in what felt like forever, someone had seen her, really seen her. Later that night, Sophia sat on her worn-out couch, Keanu's jacket still wrapped around her like a shield against the world. The rain tapped softly on the window, now quieter, but her mind was loud. She couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. How a stranger, no, not just any stranger, Keanu Reeves, had cared enough to stop, to help her, to see her when she had felt invisible for so long. She ran her fingers over the smooth leather of the jacket. It felt warm, like more than just clothing. It felt like hope, like maybe life wasn't always going to be so hard. Her eyes drifted to the small gap under the couch, and for some reason, she reached down. Her hand found an old sketchbook, dusty and bent. She hadn't touched it in years, since before Lily was born, back when she still believed dreams could turn into something real. She hesitated but opened it. The pages were mostly blank now. Life had taken over, diapers, double shifts, bills. Art didn't fit into survival. But tonight was different. She picked up a pencil. She didn't even know why she was doing it. But her hand started moving. Lines, curves. She sketched the man on the motorcycle, rain falling around him. The kind eyes, the jacket, the moment he lifted his helmet. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be. It was real. The next morning, as she buttered toast with shaky hands, Lily saw the drawing on the coffee table. Her little face lit up. "Mommy, this is so pretty. Did you make it?" Sophia smiled, tired but proud. "It's just a silly sketch, baby." But to Lily, it wasn't silly. It was something special. And later that day, while Sophia was distracted folding clothes, Lily took the sketch with her. She thought it would make other people smile, so she left it with the nice worker at the laundromat. She didn't know that this small, innocent act would soon change everything. 2 days later, Sophia was in the kitchen making toast. It was the end of the week, and all she had left was the last bit of peanut butter from the jar. Lily was sitting at their little table, humming some made-up song while swinging her legs. It was one of those rare, quiet moments. No sirens, no shouting from next door, just her and her daughter. Then she heard it, a car pulling up outside. Not the usual kind, no beat-up sedan or delivery van. This was different, smooth, quiet. When she peeked through the window, her heart skipped. A black SUV, brand new, tinted windows. It didn't belong here, not in this part of town. She wiped her hands on a dish towel, trying to push down the nervous feeling in her chest. Maybe it was the landlord. Maybe it was a mistake. Then came the knock. Firm, confident. Lily looked up, wide-eyed. "Who's that, Mommy?" "I don't know, baby," she said, forcing a calm voice. But her hands were shaking a little as she opened the door. Standing there was a man in a suit, clean-shaven, neat haircut, holding a black folder. He looked like someone who belonged in an office downtown, not on her broken doorstep. "Miss Carter?" he asked politely. She nodded, unsure. "I'm Nathaniel Briggs. I work for Mr. Reeves." Her heart jumped. "Keanu?" She almost laughed. This had to be a joke, right? "I'm sorry, what?" she said. He smiled like he understood her confusion. From his jacket, he pulled out an envelope. "Mr. Reeves asked me to deliver this personally." She took it slowly, like it might disappear if she blinked. It was heavy, good paper, fancy. She opened it carefully. Inside was an invitation, a private art event. Her name was on it. She stared at it, then back at Nathaniel. There's been a mistake. I'm not an artist." I work at a diner. Nathaniel shook his head. No mistake. Your drawing. It was left at the laundromat. A talent scout saw it, recognized Mr. Reeves in the sketch. They passed it on to him. He was impressed. Very impressed. Sophia's mouth went dry. Her drawing? That quick sketch. She looked over at Lily, who was still watching from the table, peanut butter on her cheek. Lily, did you take Mommy's picture somewhere? The little girl nodded, proud. The man at the laundromat said it was nice, so I gave it to him. Sophia's chest tightened. She looked back at Nathaniel. But I'm not a real artist. Nathaniel's face softened. Mr. Reeves seems to think you are. That night, after Lily was asleep, Sophia sat at the small kitchen table, staring at the invitation. Her hands ran over the thick paper, but all she could think was, this can't be for me. Art event? Real artists go to things like that. People who went to school for it. People who didn't spend their nights wiping down tables and counting tips, hoping they had enough for rent. What if she went, and they laughed at her? What if she brought her sketches, and everyone saw she didn't belong? Her chest felt tight. That familiar voice in her head, the one that had been there for years, kept whispering, "You're not good enough. Don't get your hopes up." She was about to put the invitation away when a small voice broke the silence. "Mommy." She turned to see Lily rubbing her eyes, half asleep. "What is it, baby?" Lily looked at her with those big, trusting eyes. "Are you scared?" Sophia froze. She didn't know what to say. Sometimes, she admitted. Lily tilted her head, sleepy but serious. "But you always tell me to be brave, even when I'm scared." Sophia felt her heart squeeze. Kids had a way of seeing the truth, even when you tried to hide it. After tucking Lily back into bed, Sophia picked up her sketchbook. Her hands were still shaky, but this time, it felt different. She wasn't just drawing to escape. She was drawing because maybe, just maybe, this could be something. She sketched late into the night, pencil moving faster with every line. Fear was still there, but so was something else. Hope. The night of the event came faster than Sophia expected. She had borrowed a simple dress from a neighbor, a little too big, but it was clean. Her hands trembled as she stepped out of the black car Nathaniel had sent. The building was huge, all glass and lights, the kind of place she had only seen in movies. People walked past her, dressed in fancy clothes, smiling like they belonged there. She felt small, like everyone could tell she didn't. Her fingers gripped the portfolio, holding her sketches so tightly they hurt. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. The room was buzzing, soft music, gentle laughter, people sipping drinks and admiring paintings that probably cost more than her rent for a year. She felt eyes on her, but kept moving until a woman with short blonde hair and a navy dress approached her. "Miss Carter?" the woman asked warmly. "Yes," Sophia said, her voice quieter than she wanted. "I'm Julia Sterling. I curate this event. Keanu told me about you." Sophia's chest tightened at his name. He had told her about this. "May I see your work?" Julia asked. Sophia handed her the sketches, her heart racing. Julia flipped through them slowly, not saying a word. The silence made Sophia's stomach twist. Finally, Julia looked up. "You have raw talent, real emotion in your work. It's rare." Sophia blinked. She had expected polite rejection. Not this. Julia smiled. "We would love to feature you in our next exhibition. Would you be interested?" Before she could answer, her eyes caught someone across the room. Keanu. He was standing near the entrance, watching her. When their eyes met, he gave a small, knowing smile. And then, just like that, he turned and slipped out into the night. No grand gesture, no attention. He had brought her here, and now he was letting her stand on her own. Sophia felt her throat tighten, but this time it wasn't fear. It was something she hadn't felt in a long time, pride. "Yes," she said to Julia, her voice steady. "I'd love to." Months passed, but everything was different now. Sophia's sketches, the ones she used to hide under the couch, were now hanging in galleries. People saw them, really saw them, and paid good money to have her draw for them. Commissions started coming in, slowly at first, then more. It was still hard work, but it was her work, her art. She and Lily moved out of that cramped, noisy apartment into a better one. It wasn't fancy, but it was safe. Clean hallways, windows that locked, and best of all, Lily had her own little room, with pink curtains and a shelf for her dolls. In the corner of the living room, by a window where the sunlight came through in the mornings, Sophia set up a small art desk. Her own space, her own dream, coming back to life. One evening, it started to rain, the kind of cold, steady rain that made the streets look darker than they were. Sophia and Lily were walking home from the store when she saw him, a man sitting under the awning of a closed shop. He was shivering, his coat thin, his shoes worn out. She paused. "Mommy," Lily whispered, holding her hand tight. Sophia knelt down beside the man. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. She handed him a sandwich from their bag and a bottle of water. Then, without thinking twice, she took off her jacket and draped it over his shoulders. The man looked up, his eyes tired but grateful. "Thank you," he said softly. As they walked away, Lily looked up at her. "Mommy, why did you give him your jacket? You need it." Sophia smiled, feeling that warmth in her chest. The same warmth she had felt the night Keanu stopped. "Because someone once did the same for me." That night, when the house was quiet, Sophia sat at her little art desk. She looked out into the rain and whispered to herself, hoping maybe, somehow, he would hear it. "Thank you, Keanu." Because sometimes one small act of kindness isn't small at all. It can change everything. What about you? Has someone ever changed your life with just a little kindness? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe the world needs more stories like this, hit that subscribe button.